Because of the long duration of today's mission, live coverage will conclude following the second main engine cutoff. We will now show you some of the events you will see between liftoff and AEHF-4 separation. T-minus 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3. We have ignition. 2, 1, and liftoff of the United Launch Alliance Atlas V rocket.
The Atlas V RD-180 main engine and 5 solid rocket boosters ignite to lift the rocket away from the pad. The RD-180 generates more than 860,000 pounds of thrust at liftoff. The 5 solid rocket boosters, or SRBs, each provide an additional 348,500 pounds of thrust. Shortly after liftoff, Atlas begins a pitchover to attain the proper flight path while minimizing the pressure the vehicle experiences during flight. The Atlas V reaches Mach 1, the speed of sound, at 35 seconds. The first 2 SRBs are jettisoned at 1 minute 51 seconds, followed a second and a half later by the remaining 3 SRBs. Approaching payload fairing jettison, the Atlas V is burning propellant at a rate of 2,000 pounds per second, traveling approximately 7,500 miles per hour, and located 64 miles in altitude and 150 miles downrange. During ascent, the spacecraft is protected inside the 5-meter diameter payload fairing. This 2-piece shell encapsulates both the Centaur second stage and the satellite. At approximately 3 minutes 29 seconds, the vehicle is climbed above the densest part of Earth's atmosphere, and the payload fairing is jettisoned. At 4 minutes 27 seconds, propellant levels deplete and the main engine shuts down. 6 seconds later, the Atlas Centaur separation system activates to release the booster stage. The vehicle now weighs a little more than 7% of what it did at liftoff. At 4 minutes 43 seconds, the first Centaur main engine burn begins, sending the Centaur into a circular orbit. At 11 minutes 51 seconds, cutoff of the Centaur main engine, or MECO-1, occurs. The Centaur main engine is restarted for a second burn at 22 minutes 25 seconds, placing Centaur on its path to spacecraft separation. Approximately 6 minutes later, second cutoff of the Centaur main engine occurs. The mission now enters a 3-hour coast phase. The main engine ignites for a third and final burn at 3 hours 28 minutes. At 3 hours 30 minutes, the final main engine cutoff occurs. 3 hours 32 minutes 49 seconds into flight, Centaur releases the United States Air Force AEHF-4 on its mission to provide communications to high-priority military users on the ground, at sea, and in the air.
ULA is using the Atlas V 551 configuration to launch AEHF-4. This is the 79th Atlas V launch in the 131st ULA mission. Produced in Decatur, Alabama, the Atlas V 551 is the largest and most powerful configuration in the Atlas V fleet. It is comprised of a common core booster powered by an RD-180 engine, 5 Aerojet Rocketdyne solid rocket boosters, and a Centaur second stage powered by an Aerojet Rocketdyne RL-10C1 engine. The AEHF-4 payload is protected during ascent by a RUOG 5-meter diameter payload fairing. On October 5th, the encapsulated payload was transported to the Vertical Integration Facility, or VIF, at Space Launch Complex 41, where it was mated to the Atlas V rocket. The launch countdown begins with moving the rocket from the VIF to the pad. At approximately 10:30 a.m. Monday, the quarter-mile trip began using 6 components to complete the 20-minute trip. Weighing in at about 2 million pounds, the Mobile Launch Platform, or MLP, supports the rocket and contains air conditioning, electrical, and commodities, while the undercarriages bear the weight of the MLP and rocket. 2 rail cars lead the move with the payload van, providing communication to the payload while the ground van houses the ground support for the rocket. At the rear of the convoy, the portable environmental control system provides air conditioning to the payload and rocket. Finally, trackmobiles provide the power to move the 3.5 million pound convoy. A third trackmobile is added to the front of the convoy to move our largest Atlas V configurations, like today's 551 rocket. The Atlas V rocket stands 197 feet tall, or about 21 stories, and weighs about 1.3 million pounds fully fueled. The RD-180 main engine and 5 solid rocket boosters produce approximately 2.5 million pounds of thrust to lift the rocket off the pad and begin its journey to orbit. As I mentioned earlier, Atlas V is launching the fourth satellite in the Air Force's advanced EHF constellation. Atlas V launch vehicles have delivered AEHF 1, 2, and 3 to orbit beginning in 2010. The AEHF constellation is the next generation of global, high-security, survivable communications satellites used by all branches of the United States military. AEHF satellites are the follow-on to the Department of Defense's current 5-satellite Milstar communications constellation. Once fully operational, the advanced EHF constellation will consist of cross-linked satellites, providing 10 times the throughput of the Milstar system with a substantial increase in coverage to users. This morning's mission has a number of exciting milestones. We will begin by hearing from the commander of the 45th Space Wing, Brigadier General Chess, to discuss ULA's 50th launch for the United States Air Force. Then, Major Matthew Getz will be joining me to dive into the capabilities AEHF will provide. We will also see my interview with Marty Malinowski, the Atlas V Chief Engineer, talking about today's 250th flight of the Centaur upper stage, followed by Lori O'Donnelly to fill us in on the role Lockheed Martin played in this mission. Stay tuned after Main Engine Start 2, because Major Getz and I will be returning to host a game of trivia on Twitter, featuring questions about ULA launch history. Here's how this works. A few minutes after launch, questions will be posted to ULA's Twitter account, and the first person to comment on the question with the correct answer will receive a prize. Answers and winners will be announced shortly before we sign off. Following today's broadcast, check out ULA's new live launch updates blog at ulalaunch.com, where you will find official and timely information regarding the AEHF-4 mission. The artwork on the payload fairing of today's Atlas V rocket consists of a flag in each corner representing the countries involved with AEHF: the United States, the United Kingdom, Canada, and the Netherlands. The 3 stars at the bottom represent spacecrafts 1 through 3, with a larger star coming over the horizon to represent this 4th AEHF launch. This morning's flight is dedicated in memory of our colleague, friend, and patriot, Fred Smeagol. Fred, an accomplished engineer, was an amazing logical thinker. He had a significant depth of knowledge in many areas, including avionics packaging, stress, dynamics, and how to test anything. Fred was well known and greatly trusted in the customer community, a testament to his knowledge, but more importantly, to his character. Fred was a caring, happy, fun, and humorous individual, dedicated to his career and especially his family and friends. He used his artistic ability to volunteer for ULA events and had a booming laugh that could brighten the entire team. Well respected and loved across ULA, Fred was always willing to lend a hand or teach someone something new. Fred loved launching rockets and was the consummate rocket scientist, and he will be missed across the launch community where he left an amazing legacy. Shortly after MLP rolled to pad, we had the opportunity to hear from Brigadier General Chess, commander of the 45th Space Wing. Let's take a look.
First off, I want to say how excited I am to be back at Cape Canaveral Air Force Station as the 45th Space Wing Commander. From 2012 to 2014, I had the pleasure of being the Operations Group Commander, so I'm no stranger to the hardware we have behind us and the great partnership we have with ULA. This upcoming launch of Advanced EHF-4 marks a critical part in the Air Force's Evolved Expendable Launch Vehicle program. ULA has been a great part of that program that's had 100 launches to date, but this is the 50th launch for ULA, and this brings an incredible partnership together to be able to bring national security space to the warfighter downrange, and that's what Advanced EHF-4 does for us. It brings protected military satellite communications to the warfighter, and we need that, and this is a great partnership. So with that, I'd like to say thanks to ULA for their partnership with us, thanks to the 45th Space Wing for the commitment and dedication to assured access to space, because we know control of the battlefield begins right here.
-8 minutes.
We remain in the planned 15-minute built-in hold as we continue to prepare for liftoff. In a few moments, launch conductor Ed Kidda will poll the launch team for the final go to pick up the countdown. 29 engineers and managers will be polled for system status in readiness to proceed with the launch. This is the final status check before launch for all Atlas vehicle systems, ground systems, the spacecraft, and the U.S. Air Force Eastern Range. The readiness poll includes hydraulics, pad water deluge system, electrical systems, pneumatics, propulsion, flight control, and propellants. Let's listen in as launch conductor Ed Kidda performs the final polling of the team.
-7 minutes.
Status check to proceed with terminal count. Atlas systems, propulsion.
Go.
Hydraulics.
Go.
Pneumatics.
Go.
LO2.
Go.
Water.
Go.
Centaur systems, propulsion.
Go.
Pneumatics.
Go.
LO2.
Go.
LH2.
Go.
HASGAS.
Go.
Electrical systems, airborne.
Go.
Ground.
Go.
Facility.
Go.
RFFTS.
Go.
Flight control.
Go.
GCQ.
Go.
Operation support.
Go.
COM.
Go.
Umbilicals.
Go.
ECS.
Go.
Redline monitor.
Go.
Quality.
Go.
Op safety manager.
Go.
ULA safety officer.
Go.
Vehicle system engineer.
Go.
Anomaly chief.
Go.
Range coordinator.
Clear to proceed.
Launch director.
LD is go. The launch vehicle is ready to launch.
Mission director.
This is the mission director. You have permission to launch.
Proceeding with the count. ALC, verify T0 is set for 04:15 Zulu.
Verified.
Polling is complete and the launch team has given the go for launch. From T-minus 4 minutes until launch, you will be listening to launch conductor Ed Kidda and his team performing the final steps in the countdown procedure. You will hear the team call out that Atlas LO2 topping has been secured, followed about a minute later by the call out for transferring the Atlas and Centaur stages from ground facility power to internal battery power. At T-minus 1 minute and 55 seconds, the team will command the launch sequencer to start, followed shortly by securing the Centaur LH2 and LO2 topping activity. At T-minus 1 minute and 40 seconds, the team will command the flight control system to launch enable and arm the flight termination system. In the final minute, the Atlas tanks will be verified at flight pressures, followed by verification of Centaur tank pressures. A final status check of Atlas, Centaur, and AEHF-4 readiness is conducted at T-minus 25 seconds. At T-minus 3 seconds, the RD-180 engine will roar to life. After liftoff, you'll hear the voice of Patrick Moore providing launch vehicle ascent data. This is Atlas Mission Control at T-minus 4 minutes and holding. We anticipate releasing the hold in just a few moments.
On my mark, the time will be T-minus 4 minutes and counting. 3, 2, 1, mark. 3:55.
Ground pyros enabled.
The countdown clock has resumed and we are go for launch at 12:15 a.m. Eastern.
3 minutes.
Atlas tanks to flight pressure.
Carrying LO2 topping.
250.
FDS internal.
$159.
Vehicle internal.
$155.
Launch sequence start.
$150.
Securing Centaur LH2.
Securing Centaur LO2.
$140.
Launch enabled.
$137.
T-minus 90 seconds. The
FDS
launch
arm.
vehicle, payload, ground systems, and eastern range are go for launch.
120.
OCU's armed.
SVS count started.
115.
Reduce ECS for launch. Roger.
110.
Vent valves locked.
T-minus 1 minute.
Rock report range status. Range green.
$40.
Stable at step 3.
$28.
ECS reduced for launch. Roger.
$25.
Status check. Go Atlas. Go Centaur. Go AEHF 4.
T-minus
T-minus.
10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3. We have ignition, 2, 1, and liftoff of the AEHF-4 mission carried by United Launch Alliance Atlas V rocket for the United States Air Force.
Now 20 seconds into flight. P is gone to closed loop control.
You are hearing the voice of Patrick Moore providing launch
Now
vehicle
passing
ascent
30
gate.
seconds into flight. Mach 1, Atlas 5 is now supersonic. Now passing 40 seconds into flight. And we're experiencing a telemetry dropout in the Denver data station. At this point in the flight, RD-180 should be throttling back up to 100% thrust, passing through max Q. Now passing 1 minute into flight.
Commentators, PSC, I can take over.
Go ahead.
Vehicle continues to operate normally during descent. Back to 100% thrust as expected.
And VSC, I have data now.
Back to you.
Now 1 minute, 25 seconds into flight. Atlas V rocket now weighs just 1/2 of what it did at launch, burning propellant at a rate of 6,900 pounds per second. Now 1 minute, 34 seconds into flight. And we have burnout on all 5 SRBs. RD-180 throttling back up to full thrust. 1 minute, 45 seconds into flight. 1 minute, 50 seconds in. And we have jettison of all 5 solid rocket boosters. Now passing 2 minutes into flight. Vehicle is now on closed loop steering, and vehicle is now passing Mach 5. Now 2 minutes, 10 seconds into flight. RD-180 pump speeds and injector pressures look good in the full thrust mode. Now 2 minutes, 25 seconds in, approximately 2 minutes remaining in the Atlas booster phase of flight. Launch vehicle is now 42 miles in altitude, 81 miles downrange distance, traveling at 5,800 miles per hour. 2 minutes, 40 seconds into flight. And RD-180 is now throttling to maintain a 2.5G acceleration limit. Engine response and vehicle acceleration response looks good. Centaur reaction control system is now pressurizing the flight levels. 2 minutes, 57 seconds in. Now 3 minutes into flight. Atlas V is now 63 miles in altitude, 137 miles downrange distance, traveling at 7,500 miles per hour. And pump speeds and injector pressures on the RD-180 look good as they're throttling to maintain that 2.5G acceleration limit. Approximately 1 minute remaining to BECO, standing by for payload fairing jettison. And we have good indication of payload fairing jettison. And we have CFLR jettison. Now 3 minutes, 40 seconds into flight. Vehicle now throttling to 95% thrust. And main engine now throttling to maintain a constant 4.6G acceleration limit. Now passing 4 minutes into flight, and we have Centaur boost phase chill down. Approximately 20 seconds remaining till BECO. Pump speeds and injector pressures on the RD-180 continue to look good as they're throttling to maintain the acceleration limit. 10 seconds remaining to BECO. Standing by for BECO. And we have BECO booster engine cutoff, standing by for stage separation. And we have good indication of stage separation. We have pre-start on the RL-10, standing by for ignition. And we have ignition on the RL-10. Chamber pressure looks good. Vehicle body rate response looks good. This is the first burn of today's mission. This first burn should last approximately 6 minutes. RL-10 appears to be performing well. Chamber pressure looks good. Vehicle body rates also looking good. Now passing 5 minutes, 10 seconds into flight. And 5 minutes, 25 seconds into flight.
This is Atlas Mission Control at T plus 5.5 minutes. Patrick Moore just confirmed a successful completion of the early phase of today's flight, and all systems continue to operate nominally. The mission is currently in the first of 2 Centaur engine burns. Our next event, Centaur main engine cutoff, will occur in approximately 7 minutes. I'm joined now by Major Matthew Getz from the U.S. Air Force's Space and Missile Systems Center. Major Getz, thank you so much for being with us this morning.
Glad to be here, Tyler.
So, a great liftoff of the 4th satellite in the AEHF constellation. How do you feel?
It feels great. You know, this is a major milestone for the Air Force and a big win for the United States and our international partners. So on behalf of Team SMC, I'd like to thank our industry partners, specifically Lockheed Martin, Northrop Grumman, and the United Launch Alliance.
Now, I mentioned earlier when we were looking at the payload fairing logo, a few of the international partners. Who are they and what do they do?
So we currently have 3 international partners on the program, the United Kingdom, the Netherlands, and Canada. And we're currently in negotiations with Australia's Department of Defense so that we can onboard them as a 4th. In line with the Secretary of Defense and his guidance, the Air Force is actively working to build more partnerships with our allies around the world. This really improves interoperability and makes us a more lethal combined fighting force.
That's certainly a lot of capability, and I touched on that earlier in the broadcast. Could you tell us a little bit more about AEHF's mission?
Sure. So the mission of Advanced EHF is to provide survivable, protected communication for the military's high-priority assets on the ground, at sea, and in air. It also enables the President of the United States and combatant commanders to control their tactical and strategic forces through all levels of war and at all phases of conflict.
And with all that capability, what exactly is the coverage of the AEHF constellation?
So AEHF-4 that we just launched off the ground will complete the fully operational constellation for AEHF, and that will provide continuous coverage between 65 degrees north latitude and 65 degrees south.
Okay, and that's really interesting. And you mentioned some other satellites that might be on the way. When's the next AEHF going to be launching?
Correct. So we've procured 2 additional satellites, and the next one, AEHF-5, we're currently projecting to see that lift off next July in 2019.
Well, now that we've discussed the satellite and its capabilities, can we hear a little bit more about yourself and your background and how you got involved with the AEHF team?
Sure. So I'm a program manager. I've been in the Air Force for just over 10 years, active duty, and I've been on the AEHF program for about 2 years. In my current role, I am responsible for assembly, test, and launch operations.
Well, fantastic. And thank you so much for teaching us more about the AEHF mission. You must be really proud today.
Absolutely. Also, we recognize that this is the 50th mission for the U.S. Air Force on the Atlas and the 250th launch overall for the upper stage Centaur. And I just want to say the Air Force is very proud to be a part of this heritage and thankful for the hard work between the Air Force and our industry partners.
Well, thank you again, and I'll return with Major Getz later, closer to MECO 2, to announce the answers to our Twitter questions, as well as the winners. So we are now approaching the first Centaur main engine cutoff. Let's return to the flight.
Continuing to see some periodic thruster firings. Now passing 9 minutes, 30 seconds into flight. And approximately 2 minutes now remaining until MECO. And Centaur propellant utilization system continuing to control MR as expected. RL-10 chamber pressure continues to look good. And just over 1 minute now remaining until MECO. Now passing 11 minutes, 15 seconds into flight. RL-10 continuing to perform well. Chamber pressure looks good. Now 11 minutes, 30 seconds into flight, and we have IIP vanish. Launch vehicle is now orbital. And standing by for MECO momentarily. And we have MECO, main engine cutoff. Centaur body rates damping out nicely from the shutdown transients. Now seeing RCS thruster activity as expected to maintain vehicle control.
This is Atlas Mission Control at T plus 12 minutes, 22 seconds and counting. Patrick Moore just confirmed the first Centaur main engine cutoff. Our next event, main engine burn number 2, will occur in approximately 10 minutes.